This talk is about the hidden secrets of the ancient mystery schools. My name is Buck Rhodes. Did you know that the secrets of the ancient mystery schools have been hidden in plain view for a couple of thousand years? The reason why we didn't recognize it is they were called something else, like myths or sacred literature. But they're there, and they've been there right in front of our eyes. So we have discovered this secret, that that's what they are, and found that you can use these secrets to really develop your own true self and understand who you truly are. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you the secret. In fact, I've already told you the secret, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. I'm going to tell you how we discovered it, how we developed it, how we proved it, and how you can use this information to develop your own self spiritually. A long time ago, like 20 years, I set the intention to discover the secrets of the ancient mystery schools. Years passed. Nothing happened. But then I started meditating on a weekly basis with a friend of mine, and we'd meditate for 2 minutes, and then we'd just talk about whatever came up. Well, one day, the idea just popped into my head that the secret was that what I had thought was sacred literature, well, it was sacred in a way, but it really was what was used in the mystery schools to open the minds of the students to the rich treasures in their subconscious, as well as the malarkey that was in their subconscious. And then they could sort through and get out the deep wisdom that was truly theirs, not somebody else's. So, also, I had studied Gestalt dream analysis, so I knew there was another way to deal with literature rather than just reading it. So what happens when you read a story, you get a message, a dualistic message, that goes into the left side of your brain. But when you experience a story as though it's happening right now, you have a different way of registering it. It goes into your right brain, to the intuitive or the non-dualistic part of yourself. Now, when you put these two things together, as you do as you go through this process, you suddenly get to the aha. You integrate these two sides of the story, and then you got your own deep wisdom. It's not anybody else's, it's just yours. So what we did is we started reading old stories. We started reading the Bible because my friend and I were both ex-Christians, but at one time we did know those stories really well. And as we started what we call gestalting these stories, or reliving them in the present tense, and opening up our subconscious and finding out all these amazing things that we had no idea were there, we began to realize that we were changing. What was happening is our worldview switched from the classical duality of Western religions to the non-dualistic viewpoint, or oneness viewpoint. We discovered that beliefs that we had inherited from our culture, from our religious training, from our parents, was disappearing and being replaced by beliefs that came from our true self. Which meant that we're discovering who we truly are. Not who somebody told us we were, or who our culture or our parents tried to define us as. We begin to discover our true self. So this was so amazing we wrote it down. And eventually we published this book, a book called Can Christians Be Saved? A Mystical Path to Oneness. And this documents this experience that we had and paved the way for what we're doing now. What we're doing now is we're writing another book called The Hidden Secrets of the Ancient Mystery Schools. An 11-step process to a God realization. So now what's happening is we're teaching this to a few students, and As we got ready to write this down into a book, we wrote an outline, and then another outline, and then another outline. And finally, after a half a dozen outlines, one night as I'm ready to go to sleep, I say, Jesus, help, I can't figure this one out. Well, another thing that happened to us along this pathway is Jesus, who we'd completely forgotten about almost from the past, started coming to us in our meditations, having conversations with us, as well as other masters from the ancient times would show up and help us and explain things to us. Well, when I said, help, Jesus, he said, okay. He says, you know what, Buck? You have always assumed, or in recent years you've assumed, that I was a successful candidate of the ancient mystery schools. He says, let's start with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you my life history in terms of the critical decisions I made to get from where I started to where I ended up after the resurrection. So he told us all the steps, the decisions. I'll give you an example. According to the story in the Bible, when he was 12 years old, he went to the temple with his parents to celebrate Passover. So he gets caught up in a conversation with a bunch of teachers there. And he's listening to these guys talk, and he's talking to them and asking questions. They're asking him questions. And suddenly he realizes, I'm just a kid, but I know more than these guys know. And the reason was he had gone to the Athenian mystery school when he was younger, and then when he was in Egypt, he went to a mystery school over there. And as he's talking to these guys and listening to these guys talk, he thought about those mummies that he saw in Egypt. How they were just all wrapped up and bound up in those burial clothes, so they had no freedom of movement at all. And he thought, these guys, with all of their laws, with all of their rules, with all of their regulations and beliefs, can't think. They're totally bound up. And he says, you know, I don't want to be like that. Well, after the conversation was over, he leaves the temple and goes outside, and there's his mother. Now he can tell that she's not very happy with him because she had gone already halfway home and realized he wasn't with him, and she had to come back to get him. And the second part of the decision he made right then, he says, not only do I have to give up all these rules and laws of the religion that I've been taught, but I've got to give up the cultural conditioning and the family conditioning. I have got to be totally free so I can have my own true experiences. And then the follow-up decision was to go around the world, get as much education in as many different places from as many different people as he possibly could, which he did until he came back years later to start his career as a teacher in his homeland. So what I haven't told you is any of the gestalted stories that we did from the ancient literature, or did I give you the details of the methodology. But with Robert Evans' coaching, he said one day in one of his courses, you can write a mini book in a month. And so I said, okay. So I did. The first of these mini books is Your Heart is My Home, a quote from God. This gives examples of some of the things we learned doing this Gestalt processes with the sacred stories. So this is available to you for free. You can pick one up as you leave the lecture. The second one is Helping Friends Analyze Their Dreams. This gives the detail of the Gestalt methodology. This is the methodology applied to dreams, but it's the same methodology that we use for analyzing the sacred stories. You simply relive the stories as if you're the character and the symbols of the story in the present tense. So you can have this second book for free too, and you'll have the whole sequence of what we learned and how we learned it. In conclusion, I invite you to use our methodology. You can start using it now just based on these two little books. But then eventually, by the end of the year, we'll hope that our major book, Hidden Secrets of the Ancient Mystery Schools, will be published, and then you can use that. Basically, by doing this, you're going to wide open your subconscious. You're going to get this experience of your true self your true wisdom, which prepares you for the eventual great event of receiving the grace of God realization. Thank you.